Hello, everybody. Welcome back into another edition of Prime Sports World. On today's episode of Prime, we're going to be continuing our season preview of the National Basketball Association. This time, we're swinging into the Southeast Division preview. That's the Miami Heat, reigning defending Eastern Conference champions, Atlanta Hawks, Maryland Magic, Charlotte Hornets, and Washington Wizards. Of course, your host, David On Point Huffman, right there. My co-host, Mr. TJ Hopkins. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. If you do happen to miss us live, I've shared the link to all of our plethora streaming platforms. TJ, happy Thursday, my friend. How are you?
Yeah.
I feel that, man. I feel that. Yeah, getting closer, though. You know, one more day, buddy. One more day. And man, yeah. I had a just a so day at work. Like I spent all day planning all this show stuff out. And then the live shot ended up dying like right before my newscast, and so I ended up having to like figure out how I was going to replace it. It's a whole thing, man. So just one of those days. So let's just jump right into it with the first team. Oh man, I wanted to switch these, so I'm going to flip them real quick. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Atlanta, you don't get to get talked about before Miami Heat. Obviously, the reigning Eastern Conference champions. They're coached by the wonderful Eric Spoelstra. They're 44-38 last year. Actually, the Atlanta Hawks had a better record than them, but they went further in the playoffs. Their key starters: Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Josh Richardson, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. And their key reserves are listed right there. You can see all their key reserves. Pretty common people you can see. Let's talk about some storylines when it comes to the Miami Heat.
All right. I think the bigger storyline is, again, you've tried to make improvements to your roster. You've missed out on the last 4 big name trade candidates. You missed out on Kevin Durant.
And one of those guys wanted to come there. Like,
one of those guys actually wanted to come there. You missed out on Kevin Durant. You missed out on Bradley Beal. You missed out on Donovan Mitchell. And now you've missed on Damian Lillard. I don't understand the mindset of it. I get it. You like Tyler Hero, right? But if I had a chance to get either one of those dudes, one of those 4 dudes, and Tyler Heat,
the Heat were willing to get rid of Tyler Hero. They were willing to trade him. The problem is that the other teams that they were trading with did not want him.
But that should tell you about, like, maybe Tyler Hero ain't as sought after as people think. But
Also,
the
welcome
fact,
to the show, CEO of Prime Sports World, Mr. Israel Rivera. Sorry, go ahead, TJ.
but the fact remains is you had four, like you were linked to four different stars or superstars, however you want to categorize them, and you missed on all four. And this is at a like, and this is Miami. This is South Beach. This is Pat Riley. This is the Dawn. This is
Mhm.
Florida, where you get no state taxes. Like your money is your money. Championship culture, and you miss out on 4 stars.
Yeah, and I also think it's a difficult sell. Like you had all of these guys that were like knowing on the trade block. I know it's part of the industry, and you got to be kind of aware of it as an NBA player. But like, I think you have to bring those guys back into the fold. And Nikola Jovic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, be like, yeah, we weren't able to trade you for anyone better, so you're just kind of stuck here. And not to mention, they let two of their key pieces to a finals run last season walk in free agency for nothing. Max Strus went to the Cavs. Gabe Vincent went to the Lakers. Like, this is a team that like actively got worse this offseason. Like the Heat are like like if their young players like Nikola Jovic doesn't take a major step forward, or Jaime Jaquez doesn't jump into the NBA and is good immediately, they're gonna struggle to really like replicate the same kind of success that they had last year. Go ahead, Izzy.
No, because yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what TJ said. Let me just start with what TJ said. Yeah, I mean, Tyler Hero, like, yeah, nobody wanted Tyler Hero for some reason. And obviously it wasn't because, of his age, right? It's obviously because people think that
Right.
he's, right, because he's young, he's talented, but people, are not gonna, we're not gonna trade you Damian Lillard for Tyler Hero and a bunch of, draft picks
That's
and,
some stuff.
some nobodies, right?
Well, I think the
When
problem with that trade, particularly the Portland Trailblazers, have young wings. They don't
Mhm.
need
They
another
don't need
young
another
wing.
one.
They don't need
Yeah,
another young
exactly.
wing. Like they just didn't need what he brought to the table. Like
Right,
there's no
and
need for
he's
it.
and he's a and he's what do we classify him as, a budding star? I don't,
I mean, he won Six Man
good
of the
player.
Year, and he's kind of regressed since then. I mean, he was
Yeah.
pretty good for them last season before he got hurt. But
So
I think a lot to be said the fact that this team went to the finals without him.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And they went to the finals with a bunch of undrafted, guys, undrafted pieces. So my thing with the Miami Heat is, where's the offense gonna come from? Right? Like you said, I mean, it's pretty much Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo pick and roll. But Kyle Lowry's up there in age. Well, he's been up there in age. Tyler Heroes, coming off an injury. I mean, he may have something to prove. And like you said, if Duncan Robinson was in the doghouse for a hot minute, and Tyler Heroes, I mean, and and who else? Like you said, Jaime Jaquez. If he's not, producing right off the bat, and I mean, he had a good summer league, and like TJ said, that's cute. But once the real bright lights come on,
Yeah.
when the real bright lights come
I
on,
say it all the
this ain't
time.
UCLA no more, buddy. You got to really
Like
produce.
you're not going to be bigger, stronger, faster than the players that was like one of his things at UCLA. He was just bigger than the players he went up against,
So my
and
whole
like that's
thing
not going to
is,
be the case in the
so my
NBA.
whole thing is, I'm looking at their depth chart. I mean, like, and Caleb Martin. I mean, he's gonna have to take a step up, in this offense, like he did, like had that playoff run.
I mean,
And I
he
mean,
was arguably their second best player in the
yeah,
playoffs last
exactly.
year.
So my whole thing is is like a guy like RJ Hampton, who I'm looking at is on the roster, who's probably going to be at the end of the. Is he going to be able to step up? Is Duncan Robinson going to be able to step up this year? Is Nikola Jovic going to take that?
I think that's the guy, right, that has to make the major step forward. Like if he's been
Jovic.
the piece that they've been dangling around in trades. He's the guy who has to take a step forward. He's got a guy who has to come from a fringe bench player to somebody you could start on a night to night basis, coming off your bench as like a six man.
Nikola Jovic.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I like, like another good story last postseason was Haywood Highsmith. I mean they got some, they
I
still got
think
those scrappy
that's the
guys.
thing.
Where are they gonna get out of them?
That's the thing. Like, and at
Yeah,
some point in time, that story gets old.
old. Yeah,
It gets
exactly.
old. They're like, oh, they got these young, undrafted, scrappy dudes, and okay,
Mm-hmm.
no. At the end of the day, you still need star power,
Exactly.
and you like that's what happened. Like you ran. So like it was good. Like you beat a team that you probably weren't expected to beat. Like don't get me
But
wrong. Like if you brought it up, like you call a break. Giannis has a back injury that usually keeps a person out about a month, but because it's the playoffs, he has to play. And you
Mm-hmm.
clearly tell that Giannis was out there, he was hurt.
He was not the
The,
same. No.
So let's
then
talk
like
best and worst case.
And
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
and also hold on, and also the size difference. They're still small, right? I mean, I know Thomas Bryant. You didn't use him in the playoffs. You still got Kevin Love,
no,
who's up
they
there in
just
age.
got him. He wasn't there last year. They just got him.
I thought wasn't Tom. Oh no, he was on the Nuggets. But yeah, you're still small. You're still very small, and like when you go against teams that have much more size, and you ran into it against the Nuggets, you're gonna run into it against the Bucks. You're gonna run into it against the Celtics. I mean, those top teams are
I
going
mean,
to
to a
they're gonna run
lesser
into it
extent, the
against Philly.
Celtics. I mean,
No.
but
Al,
but anyway,
Al Horford and Porzingis is a bigger, and Tatum is a bigger front court than Bam,
Absolutely,
Jimmy,
oh,
and Josh
and
Richardson.
Jalen Brown.
sure,
Yeah,
sure, but I mean, Porzingis doesn't really play like a quote unquote the kind of big that would scare. Like he's not going to be a
He,
banger in the post.
but
Like,
he
come on,
takes Bam away from David. Why do you do that?
yeah.
He takes Bam away from the paint, and and I don't care what you.
I
7-3 is 7-3.
I imagine in those scenarios, like Bam will guard Al Horford. Like they'll have somebody else do that.
But even in your scenario, Al, you act like Al Horford can't bang in the
Yeah,
paint.
yeah, but he's. Anyways, let's talk best and worst case scenario when it comes to Miami Heat. I think the best case scenario for this team is I think they would like a 6 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. I do not see them returning to the NBA Finals.
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I think I'm actually gonna say that they're a 7 seed, in the NBA.
You mean their best case scenario is that they're a play-in team? At best.
Yeah, they're a playing team basically. I mean, best case scenario. I mean, the East has gotten so much better the last couple of years. I don't
Me
see
personally,
I think their best case scenario is a 5 seed.
I ain't going that far. I'm with Izzy. They a play in team now. I understand that that to them that doesn't mean much, especially after the run they went on last season. You're the first team to go play into NBA Finals, but first off, that starting lineup, I don't think that's the starting lineup. I'm not starting Kyle Lowry. I'm sorry.
I'm starting Caleb Martin.
The thing is, they don't have a lot of better options.
No, I'm starting Tyler Hero at the point, Josh Richardson at the 2, and I'm with Izzy. I'm probably gonna throw Caleb Martin in that starting lineup spot. I don't like, because if you put Kyle Lowry with the starters and Hero with the starters, your second unit for sure is trash. Who running the?
It's true. It's tough. Let's talk about worst case scenario. I think worst case scenario, this team misses the play-in entirely. I think there's a scenario where you're talking about the Eastern Conference. They're like the 11th seed in the conference. I could see it.
Definitely, they'll be missing the play-in. That's the worst case scenario. That's the only scenario that's going to be the worst case scenario is that they miss the playoffs. So
because at some point the Magic is gonna run out of the bottle. Like the bottle's gonna get empty. Like you got the finals run in 2020, and then you had some deep playoff runs the last 2 years. But like we said, you've come up short. Why? Because of your lack of talent. And
it's an overall reliance on Jimmy Butler to bail them out every single night. He's not capable of doing that every night.
And every time, what has happened? He's hit a wall. Yeah. 2020, brick wall. Like he had that amazing game 5, game 6, cooked, washed. It was over with.
And he was basically not great during the finals last year. So moving on from the Miami Heat, let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks. Their big move this offseason was trading away John Collins. They also re-signed DeJounte Murray to an extension. Their starting lineup looks like that. Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, DeAndre Hunter, Sadiq Bey, and Clint Capella. There's their key reserves. They're head coached by Quinn Snyder, who got this job in the middle of last season. They were 41-41 last year. They were the 7th seed after they beat Miami in the play-in tournament. Let's talk about some storylines when it comes to the Atlanta Hawks.
Can y'all stop being mid? Like y'all
mediocre.
Like y'all are y'all were legit the definition of mid. Y'all were 5-5 in your last 10, 10-10 in your last 20. Like, stuff like that. Like it was like the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Like I ain't never seen a team that was legit 500 the entire season. Like you were 15-15 in your last 30, and so on and so forth. Like I've never seen that in the history of my years of watching the NBA. I ain't like start to finish, from the start of the season to the end of the season, you were mid.
I think another storyline, something that we probably have to watch out for, is the dynamic with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. I know, in the preseason they're 3-1 and they've looked fine, but if they struggle out the gate, I mean, I know that they signed, DeJounte Murray to an extension. Is there a possibility that they might, move on, try to trade away Trae Young for, some more assets? I know that
Yes,
probably should have happened
yes,
already.
yes.
Yes, they for sure could happen. I also think it will be interesting now that John Collins is no longer in the mix. This elevates Onyeka Okongwu to that kind of backup big, or like maybe like the guy coming off the bench off for Clint
Well,
Capella.
David,
Like
we've
he
been
really
talking
needs
about
to
that
take
for years.
he really needs to take a step forward to really justify trading away John Collins. And also now John Collins has kind of been this kind of he's been kind of the scapegoat for this team for a long time. Like, oh, John Collins is not taking the step forwards. He's no longer here. Like, you can't blame John Collins for this team not taking steps forward.
At the same time, first of all, one, we've been talking about the logjam they've had at that position for years. Second, let's not act like John Collins didn't demand a trade. Like he wanted to go.
Yeah.
So let's not say like, hey, Okongwu, you got to justify them trading John Collins. We're like, no, John Collins wanted to go for that reason.
I mean, this team is super talented, man. When I look at this team, I mean, they can score with the best of the best. Clint Capella's a stalwart. Yeah, and there you go. I think their backcourt just doesn't play a lick of defense. And I mean, Clint Capella, as good as he is as a shot blocker, I mean, he can be out of position sometimes as well. So yeah, I do agree with David.
Mention Clint Capella doesn't give you much on the offensive end of the basketball.
Yeah, and I agree with David. I think that Onyeka Okongwu, he has all the talent in the world. He does have to take the next step up offensively and defensively. We saw those games, where he looked like a bright star offensively and defensively, but he just doesn't put them together consistently.
And I think another thing on Okongwu, he's going into a contract year, right? So like this is going to be a big season for him to eventually get paid by the Hawks or somewhere else. Yeah. I also think DeAndre Hunter, he also has to take another guy has to take a major step forward. He has to be more productive on offense than he has been so far throughout his NBA career. And I also think they're expecting a lot of Kobe Buffkin. They took in the first round out of Michigan. Like I think they're going to need him to be productive for this team. Let's talk about what's the worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario for the Atlanta Hawks?
Y'all stay mid.
That's legit though. I mean, oh God, man. Best case scenario for
best
them.
Case scenario, like best case scenario, y'all stay mid.
I'm not taking. They're not better than Boston. They're not better than Milwaukee. Obviously, they're not better than Philly. They're not better than Cleveland. They're not better than
Knicks.
They're not. Yeah, I would even go as far to say, they're probably not better than.
Magic, even
the Magic, even I mean,
maybe
this team. I mean, man, I'm gonna have to say 7th, 6th, 7th seed, maybe 6, 7 is 6th seed, maybe the best case scenario. It's still like TJ said, being mediocre for this team because I expect this team to be. And I'm not sure if it's a coaching thing or anything. I don't know.
I think one of the worst. I think one of the worst things that ever happened to this Atlanta Hawks team is that they made the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. Like if they hadn't done that,
they hit lightning in the bottle though.
Like they ran into the Sixers who fell apart in that series. But like the fact that they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, like I think it put unrealistic expectations on this roster and this team because they're just not talented enough to compete with the upper echelon of the
defensively.
Yeah, okay. However you want to spin it, they're not good enough to be. They're not good. That's straight up not good enough.
That's Izzy's point. Offensively, they can go with anybody. Offensively, they can get buckets with just about anybody.
I mean, DeJounte Murray was a fantastic defensive player. All of a sudden, he gets to Atlanta, he can't defend anymore. I mean, it just seems like there's more going on here than.
Yeah, but that's because Pop had him on the Pop. That's that Popovich effect, right? It's like you're not gonna play unless you play defense, And DeJounte Murray like kind of came into the league knowing that, so he had to play defense on the San Antonio. He gets to the Spurs. I mean, he gets to the Hawks, and he's like, shoot, I want to play. I want to be I want to start playing offense. I want to do what Trae Young does. I want to score offense and not play a lick of defense. So,
but yeah, I think the best case they're a 6 or 7 seed. How about worst case scenario for this team?
They stay mid.
I think worst case scenario for them, they barely make the play-in. I don't think they miss the playoffs, but they're that what is that 9-10.
No, they're
I agree with you on that. I think I don't think they're gonna miss the play-in. Like I don't think there's a scenario where Atlanta's not a play-in team, but I can see it. Like I think they're the 9 or 10 seed in the Eastern Conference on a bad day.
Yeah,
best case scenario they stay mid. Worst case scenario, they stay mid.
They'll probably end up with a 500 record again this season.
And defense is an effort thing. That's not a thing. It's like it's not like a thing where it's like, you're super talented and you can play great defense. No, defense is an effort thing. It's a preparation thing. It's how much you want it kind of thing. And if the Hawks want to take it back to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're gonna have to put in that much effort defensively to get back there.
Really check for you Atlanta Hawk fans. They're not going to the Eastern Conference Finals.
And here's the thing. One thing that's not being talked about, like especially with Trae Young, bro, this is your fourth coach.
Fourth.
This is your fourth coach. So at what point do we start looking at him?
I think the conversation's already started, for sure. Moving on from the Atlanta Hawks, let's talk about the Washington Wizards. Major overhaul to their roster this offseason. Bradley Beal out, Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly in, along with Kyle Kuzma and Daniel Gafford. There's their key reserves. Wes Unseld Jr. is their head coach. They were 35 and 47 last year. Let's talk about it. Storylines when it comes to the Washington Wizards. I think the big storyline is these first-round picks that are on this roster that have just been okay as pros. Corey Kispert of the world, Denny Avdia. Those guys need to take major steps forward in order to justify them continue to be on this roster, continue being in the NBA. If we're being frankly honest with you.
I'm super surprised about Corey Kispert. I thought he'd be, a better player than what he is.
Well, I thought he'd at least be a knockdown shooter. He hasn't been
that. It hasn't been that. And I remember
Denny Avdia is going into a contract season. I mean, he's been just okay as a pro.
I remember as a Bulls fan, I really wanted Denny Avdia, as a Bulls fan. Now I'm kind of looking back like,
he's he's become one of those sexy picks for one of those guys that's going to break out this season.
Yeah.
If you watch any NBA YouTubers, they all talk about Denny Avdia because he has some tangibles and skill set.
Man, can Jordan? Man, you know what? I think a big storyline is can Jordan Poole get this team to the playoffs?
No, he can't. I'm telling you right
now. that's probably the main storyline because Jordan Poole wanted to be the man. He wanted to be viewed as one of the
I think Draymond Green wanted him to be the man somewhere else. Is what happened. Or attempt to be the man.
So I think the main storyline is Jordan Poole. This is your show, right? This is definitely ain't Kyle Kuzma's show. This is your show, Jordan Poole.
Duo.
Can you take us to the play? Can you take us to the playoffs? Are you gonna make those clutch baskets that you were making 2 seasons ago? It's not like Jordan Poole wasn't a good player last season. He was good. He just it
was fine. He wasn't.
He just stayed the same. He stayed the same pretty much. I mean, he did up his points per game. I think. By like point something, if you look at it,
I don't think that really counts.
That doesn't really count. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So he pretty much stayed the same.
I really like Tyus Jones as a floor general for this team. Yes. He came over in the Kristaps Porzingis trade. He leads the NBA in turnover differential, assist to turnover differential for the last 3 seasons in a row. He's a very good point guard for this team. And I also think he's a guy that puts these young guys in a good position to be successful. Mm-hmm. Like the guy they took from France, Bilal
Coulibaly.
Yeah, I think he has an opportunity to he's going to start for this team. He's going to play a lot of minutes. He's going to play on a bad basketball team. He's going to have certain numbers.
Young, super raw. That's Victor Wembanyama's teammate back in France. He's super young, super talented. I mean, super raw. And the one thing that that Tyus Jones, I mean, that they're gonna get with him. I think I said it probably on draft day or in the draft coverage. Is that he's gonna run the floor, so he's gonna get immediately 8 points a game just by running the floor, just by running the wing. And that's what he does really well. It's about all the other stuff. What is he? He's really great in the full court, running the floor. But in the half court, he's raw. He's not that. He's young. You got to remember, he's only 18.
Another thing with this team is like Johnny Davis, right? So you take him with the top 10 pick last season. You know how many minutes he played last year in total on the active roster?
Not a lot.
Disappointing.
62.
Disappointing.
Minutes. 62 minutes.
I'm sure he don't got any
total.
more commercials, does he?
What?
I'm sure he doesn't have any more commercials, right?
I don't. Did Johnny Davis ever have
commercials?
Davis
have commercials?
Yeah, Johnny Davis had commercials. Are you guys serious? He had the Taco Bell commercial.
I don't really remember that, but anyways, yeah, he played 62 minutes last season. His field goal percentage effective was like 44, which is like 11 for 24 from the field over the stretch of the last 15 games. Not ideal whatsoever. But yeah, this is a guy that you take with top 10 pick. You kind of need him to be productive. Like you bury him in the G League, he never really makes his spot on the roster. Like that's the guy who needs to step forward big time.
And he got that. Go ahead.
Best and worst case scenario for the Washington Wizards.
Playing.
I agree. I think I agree with you. I think they're a playing team in their best case scenario. Like Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma will click as a 1-2 tandem. Tyus Jones continues to be an excellent floor general. Denny Avdia reaches the potential that a lot of people see for him. So yeah, they could be a playing team. Like
I think what's gonna happen with those two dudes, Denny Avdia, Corey Kispert, they gotta go. Not out the league. I think they gotta go elsewhere. Because like Dave Izzy brought up Corey Kispert and how he thought he was gonna be this marksman, but where you go matters. And I just don't think Washington was a good fit for him.
I agree. I mean, out of Gonzaga, and it's not like he was out of Gonzaga. It's not like he wasn't athletic. I mean, he has, I think, close to a 40-inch vertical. He's pretty athletic for just being labeled as a shooter, and we saw that at Gonzaga.
And I also think like this Wizards team hasn't really developed players. Like nobody on their like you look at their starting lineup. Look at their starting lineup right now on their team. Not obviously outside of Kabali, who they just literally drafted, but none of those guys that they drafted on their own team. You look at their bench. I think it's much the same. I mean, they didn't draft any of those guys that are on their bench even that are productive players for their team outside of Corey Kispert and Denny Avdia.
And then also they got another young guy in Patrick Baldwin Jr. who they got I believe in that trade as well.
Yeah,
and I think Patrick Baldwin is a guy that's interesting, right? Because he was 2 years ago out of high school. He was, and I know it's high school, but he was one of the top players in the nation. He was the
number one recruit, right?
Yeah, one of the top 5 or something like that. Number 1 recruit. He went to go play for his dad at UW Milwaukee, and kind of slipped into the first round. But he's a very talented guy. I mean, he's tall.
He didn't test well at all.
But I mean, he's an interesting prospect though for them. And if you're gonna play your young guys, especially if I mean, say by mid-season, or and it's looking real rough for you guys in Grim. I mean, start playing some of those young guys more, just to see what you got.
You didn't draft Johnny Davis 10th overall to play him 62 minutes.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, this is one of the worst teams in the NBA next season.
Lottery team, yes.
Worse than lottery. Like we're talking like top 3 bottom record in the NBA.
They're looking to get Cooper Flag next year.
Yeah. Moving on from them, we got the Orlando Magic on the clock now. They're head coached by Jamal Mosley. They were 34-48 last season. Their potential starters: Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris, Franz Wagner, Paulo Prankara, and Wendell Carter Jr. You can see their key reserves right there. TJ, Izzy, storylines when it comes to the Orlando Magic.
Can you have this OKC style jump? Can you go from 34-48 to play in? right? Can Franz Wagner and Bankero be that tandem that people think it can be?
I think that's the biggest storyline of this Magic season, because the Magic season will go, like, if they're going to reach expectations, it's because those two guys Magic played well together and they just took their games to another level. Another one is, like, so they've taken a lot of swings at the point guard position. They took Anthony Black in this year's draft. They have Cole Anthony on this roster as well. They have Markel Fultz. They need to get consistent play out of the point guard position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree. I think that is the major storyline. Is this team ready to take the next step into the play-in? Because I think we've all talked about it, that this team, you cannot just keep living in the lottery. You cannot just keep, getting, worse, like, having being bad and terrible. At some point, you have to start looking at a collection of the talent, and you have to start getting better and start progressing and getting better as a franchise. And I think the Orlando Magic, I mean, you can only stockpile so many lottery picks, season after
and
year
not
after year,
cash in.
to not cash in on them, right? So yeah, you do have to make that OKC type of jump to at least make the play-in team. We're not expecting them to be a top 6 team in the East. There's no way in hell that they will be that. But my thing is, can you guys make the play-in team, and can you make it difficult on? Can you make the playoffs? As an 8 seed at least, in the play-ins, through the play-in. So I think this. I think when it comes down, that is their best case scenario for me. For them, is that they can make the playoffs through the play-in. They can be a play-in team. But we have to see, because I mean, this team, they're super talented. I mean, their first round pick was Jett Howard. He can shoot it from 3. He's long, athletic, can play defense. He's definitely a two-way player. And I mean, they are super talented all over the place. They should be going 10 deep.
Yeah, I mean, another guy, Jonathan Isaac, coming into the season healthy, had a
Yeah.
full off season to be healthy and kind of work on his game. Is this the season maybe he comes to, like, finally realize that potential? Like, there was a lot of hype around him when they first drafted him, when they first signed him to that extension.
Yeah.
He unfortunately gets injured during the play-in tournament in the COVID during the bubble. Never returns for like 2 years. Played a little bit last season, but now let's hope that he can stay healthy and kind of continue to develop his game and work on it. Because if he takes another step forward and becomes the player that many people thought he could have been, like, watch out.
They have 6. They have 6 right now. I'm looking at their roster. They have 6 lottery picks on their roster. 6 lottery picks, because Markel Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero, Wendell Carter, Anthony Black.
I mean, Maurice Wagner may have been a lottery pick too when he was taken.
Yeah, he
a
might
while
have
ago.
been. But you have 6 lottery picks on your team,
Yeah.
and I think at some point,
Jonathan Isaac was a lottery pick too.
If Markel Fultz and Jalen Suggs aren't getting it done, I think you start to see maybe Anthony Black, who was very talented at Arkansas, get integrated. I mean, he's gonna. I mean, I don't know how he's gonna get the tick over like a Cole Anthony over. I think see him getting the tick over Gary Harris. But I mean,
I think you know what you have in Gary Harris. I think you play the guy like if the unknown, like Gary Harris. I think if you're Orlando, I'd be looking to flip him at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I think you play Anthony Black over both Cole Anthony and Gary Harris. Like, I think you know what you have in those two guys. I think you know what they're going to give you on a night-to-night basis. Anthony Black is completely unknown.
He's 6'7" point guard.
They also got, like you said, they've taken cracks at this point guard thing. It just hasn't worked. Cole Anthony's a trade target.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs hasn't worked
at all.
Yeah, I mean, he would. The Magic are very lucky that they took Franz Wagner in that same draft, or that would be an absolute disaster of a draft where you have 2 first-round picks.
And Bulls fans, shut up about the Vucevic trade. Like, we could have had Franz Wagner. We didn't know Franz Wagner was going to be this. Knock it off.
And let's not pretend like Vuce hasn't been good for the Bulls. Like, why he's been let's talk about best and worst case scenario when it comes to the Orlando Magic. I actually think the best case scenario for Orlando, they're like a top 5. They're the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. I can legit see it. Like, I think, you have 1, 2, Milwaukee, Boston. I think you have the Cleveland Cavaliers for sure. They're at 3. But I think all of those other teams that are like in the conversation for 4 through 7, Orlando can for sure be in that conversation. I don't know what I'm going to get out of Philadelphia. The Knicks, they kind of are they going to be good and bad version of the Knicks? Like Orlando could be a 5 seed next year.
No, they're not. They're gonna be a playoff team. Why? Because they're too young and they ain't never done it before. Expectations.
I've said best case scenario. My best case scenario for Orlando, they could be the 5 seed.
My thing is, David, OKC I think is has better star power, and they barely.
Oh yeah, that goes without saying.
Yeah, but I think you're not comparing apples to orange. I think the talent in the West is still better than the talent in the East. Like I still think if you look at Orlando and look at the talent on this roster, like I think they're more talented than the only teams I don't think they're more talented on paper is Cleveland, Milwaukee, Boston, Philly.
I agree. But worst case scenario, they missed the play-in again.
I think that's the worst case scenario too. They're in the lottery again.
Yeah, worst case scenario, it's the same thing. And if that happens, then you got to be like, hey, Jamal Mosley, out of here, partner. Sorry. Sorry.
And I mean, honestly, work that at that part. Jalen Suggs trade, Markelle Fultz trade, Cole Anthony trade. You know what I'm saying? Like you're gonna have to start getting rid of some of these guys.
Markelle Fultz is a unrestricted free agent after this season. He probably if it doesn't work out, he may or may not
just let him walk. Right? Yeah.
So. Moving on from the Orlando Magic, we got the Michael Jordan led Charlotte Hornets. Their starters: LaMelo Ball, Scary Terry, Gordon Hayward, PJ Walker, and Mark Williams. You can see their key reserves there on the list there. Obviously.
Yeah, I need you to change that whole starting lineup because you do not draft Brandon Miller second overall.
Well, that's what they have. That's what they have on the ESPN.com.
Don't follow. Okay, first off, that's stupid. Like who? No. Terry Rozier is not starting. No, like Gordon Hayward is not starting over Brandon Miller. PJ Washington is not starting. PJ Washington's not even on the team.
Well, ESPN. Anyways, obviously one of the big storylines. Michael Jordan obviously sold this team in the offseason. So no more Michael Jordan on this in this factor here. Let's talk about the Hornets. What's storylines? I think one of the more interesting storylines is how do you incorporate Miles Bridges back into the fold? I know he's got a warrant out for his, I think a warrant, or he is dealing with something warrant related. So he is going to be dealing with some sort of
or something like that. Or
you don't incorporate him.
Yeah, I would just start to. I would treat him like the Rockets did.
Kevin Porter Jr. But they signed him to they didn't need to do I think that they're attending whenever the suspension's up, they're going to play him.
No, but they did that under the impression of him not getting in trouble again.
Right.
You violated that. So no, a message has to be sent. You got to grow the F up, bro.
And we got to treat you like Kevin Porter Jr.
And I'm not finna allow you to continue to tarnish my name and my brand and be associated with you. You got to go. I'm not finna have that on my team. You got to go.
PJ Washington is still on his team. He signed a 3-year, $48 million extension.
Yeah, he was talking about Miles Bridges.
I was talking about Miles Bridges.
You know what? I think the storyline with this team is, is just try not to suck.
Swear to God.
I also think another thing is
get better. Just try not to suck. You know?
I actually think the Hornets should try to really suck it up. I think they should trade away their veterans on this team, like Scary Terry and Gordon Hayward, and those guys. I don't matter. Whatever you can get back, future draft capital, random players that are on floundering on bad teams, just trade those guys away. And I think you should tank this entire season. This team, no offense to Hornets fans, if there are any out there, this team stinks. You're not making the playoffs. You're not making the play-in. The only goal should be for this season is to continue Brandon Miller to be a good basketball player and to get into good habits and just go from there, because this team is not good. They're not a good basketball team. They're just not. And I understand LaMelo Ball may get upset with the losing, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and honestly, looking at their roster, at some point,
the fact that Steve Clifford got rehired here after he accomplished less than nothing while he was supposed to this team.
Right. Okay, right. You don't draft Brandon Miller, who was arguably Yeah, you don't draft Brandon Miller, arguably who was arguably probably the best college basketball player last season, and not start him over Gordon Hayward, who you already know what you're getting out of Gordon Hayward. He needs to come off the bench. Terry
That'll be
Rozier,
like
you
Izzy.
already
Hold
know
on,
what you're going to get
Izzy.
out of Terry Rozier. I would
Izzy,
start
that's
Nick
like
Smith.
Izzy. That's like Portland, who drafted Scoot Henderson, saying, "Hey, we got Anthony Simons and whoever else at shooting guard. Hey, Scoot, you coming off the bench? We not finna. ESPN is not gonna list him in
Uh,
the
As much
on
as
the.
I
Come on,
like
man.
Terry Rozier, offensively, his game, I honestly would be like, hey, I mean, at some point, Nick Smith, I mean, is an interesting cat to look to probably get minutes during this season. I mean, Nick
well,
Smith
yeah,
is
I think
probably
he for sure he's for
honestly,
sure the backup point guard
when
or
I look
whatever
at
that
Nick
means.
Smith from Arkansas, he played. He was injured most of last season. Anthony Black pretty much took
Took
the
over.
reins at point guard at Arkansas. But Nick Smith is probably the most talented, and that's saying something. The most talented offensive player that came out of this draft. He is a 3-level scorer that can really put the ball in the hole. I mean, he's even more talented than Brandon Miller, and that's saying a lot, in my opinion, when he's healthy. So, and I think at some point you're going to look at some of these young guys. I think Nick Smith's going to get a lot of tick. I think Brandon Miller's going to get a lot of tick. I think Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward might be on the move. And I think, yeah, I think David's right. I mean, you want to try not to suck. You want to get improved. You want to be improved. But, I mean, there's the next year's draft. I mean, there's no Victor Wembanyama in next year's draft. I mean, you got Matatis Bucelis, who's probably the number one guy. Probably one of the guys that are going to be up there.
Oh man,
Who's up.
It's tank for Cooper Flag season, bro.
Well,
Like
Cooper
that's
Cooper Flag's in the draft after
Yeah,
that.
he can't
you
read.
know
Yeah,
But there's I mean
you hold on.
there's
You don't think that these teams plan 3 years out in advance?
oh,
no,
they
they
will
do.
be. They sure will be. They
Come on,
sure will
man.
be.
Man, I saw they like a player comparison for him. They compared it to like Giannis and like Embiid. Like it was like basically like Hall of Famers. Like they were
Well,
like, oh, this guy's
David,
gonna be
Cooper
a
Flag, yeah,
this guy's
you
gonna
got
this
like
guy's gonna be a
David,
mix of.
he's
David,
amazing.
you gotta understand. But first off, Buddy only like 16, 7. Like, he only like 16 years old right now.
Yeah.
Like that's the scary part. Like he's only 16, and he like this how you know you official when you go to Rucker Park and you sell out Rucker Park. You just don't sell like Rucker Park just don't sell out, bro. Like when it's standing room only at Rucker Park, and
Mm-hmm.
Izzy know about Rucker Park.
And I think he might have broke. Didn't he break some type of record? Didn't he? I thought he broke Durant's
I
record.
think yeah, I think he did. I saw that on the internet.
Yeah, he thought he broke Durant's record.
But back to the Hornets for this season. Yeah, I think the storyline. Yeah, I think you figure out if these young players on your roster can play. I think you move off of your veterans
I
and kind of
think
reset things in Charlotte.
Absolutely.
Let's
I think
talk about
another
best case.
what
Go ahead.
I think another storyline is all right. So like now you said it, new ownership, right? What's the direction? Like how long of a process is this gonna take to get like to right the ship? Because as much as as much as Michael Jordan did for the community of Charlotte and like bringing that franchise back to the area, you had like under his tenure, you had what is he 3 playoff appearances?
Oh, it wasn't a good tenure.
It
I
wasn't,
mean, you had like 2 All-Stars the entire time he owned the team. Like,
and
It wasn't a good tenure.
and don't get me wrong, like it's a lot of misfortune that went along the way. Some of it's his fault, some of it's just bad play. Like you could have had a pairing of Kemba Walker and Bradley Beal, but you chose Michael Kidd Gilchrist, who should have stayed his ass in school. You just it sucks. Like, and the Steve Clifford hire, David, we talked about this, was
I know.
last minute.
I don't get it.
Well, no, they offered the job to what's his name, Kenny Atkinson.
I remember.
Kenny Atkinson,
He said
Kenny
nope.
Atkinson accepted it, and then like 2 days later, he's like, "Oh no, I'm going to stay here in Golden State." So like now you got to scramble and hire a coach.
I'm aware of the way things went down.
So why do you say? Why? Oh, they hired Steve Clifford, who accomplished nothing. You act like they wanted to. It's something they had to do.
I mean, he's still there. I mean,
Is he still? He's still the head coach. I thought.
Yeah.
He's still the head coach of the. Oh my God. You know what I'm gonna say about the Hornets? The best thing about the Hornets, at least this season, where they have.
If you got League Pass, they might be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you have League Pass, they have probably one of the best play-by-play teams in the NBA. Just saying. I thoroughly enjoy whoever the play-by-play announcer is.
Best and worst case scenario for the Charlotte Hornets, man. So I've lived all over the place, and people talk about other play-by-play announcers being super good and all this whatnot. I'm like, man, have you listened to Stacey King at any point during your life, man? He's the best play-by-play guy.
Yeah,
bar none.
Probably the best.
Anyways, best and worst case scenario for the Charlotte Hornets. I think the best case scenario for them is they're a playing team. I think they sneak in as the 9 or 10 seed. I think they could be the 10 seed. I'm not predicting that, but that's the best case scenario on this.
Best case. What LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, they formed that 1-2 punch, and it's you may still miss the playoffs or play in, but at the same time, you look at that duo, and you say, hey, we got something here. Let's keep building on that. Because let's not act like Charlotte has a history of retaining the players that they draft.
That's true.
Izzy, what do you think their worst case scenario is?
Because if you lose LaMelo Ball,
I mean, obviously, I said the storyline was to try not to suck, and I think that is what I would want for this team is to just to see what they have with LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Nick Smith, all the young guys that they have.
All right, so Izzy, when you say that,
they could make the play-in tournament. They could blown up by 40 points. They could make the
play-in tournament. They could. That will be the best case scenario for them. But actually, honestly, thinking about what the best case scenario really should be for this team is to really just tank it the next 2 years and just keep stockpiling young talent. I mean, you need to improve the front court tremendously. I mean, even though I like Mark Williams, he's a good defensive player. Williams. Yeah,
he played pretty well down the stretch for them.
He did play pretty well down the stretch, but I still think
so. Let me ask you this:
talent to get a stretch for, maybe even try and get into that lottery. Worst case scenario, you are in the top 3 in the lottery. So,
let me ask you this: so when y'all say try not to suck. What exactly does that entail? Because it's
I didn't say that.
No, I said it. So I'll be the one to keep going. That just means is to not look like LaMelo Ball hasn't improved. To not look like just for Brandon Miller doesn't look like he's the guy. Just try not to look like a team that doesn't look like they're not going anywhere. In the future, look like a team OKC looked like when Chris Paul left, right? When Chris Paul that first year after Chris Paul left, he had a reputation of taking young teams to the playoffs, right? Chris, OKC.
It's not even the same franchise.
Yeah,
Chris Paul
right.
But the issue in that scenario is there's no it would be a big difference if LaMelo Ball had that mentorship. In a Chris Paul player, right? If you add a Chris Paul to this team, it changes everything.
Yeah, I agree.
It 100% changes everything because there's no reason that LaMelo Ball can't be an SGA. Right? You can argue that they right there. They right there with each other. It's just.
And when a guy like Chris Paul and when Chris Paul wasn't there in OKC. My mentality for OKC was, well, let's see how much better those two guys like Giddey and SGA can be, and they actually year after year they have gotten better, and so that's what I want to see out of Charlotte is year after year. I mean, we already know LaMelo Ball has gotten better year after year. Can he stay healthy? Brandon Miller, this is first year. Nick Smith, this is first year. Terry Rozier, Gordon Hayward, I'm sorry, but your time's coming. You're not going to be on this team, and they're going to want to be on a contender.
Man, I think a fun trade would be trading Scary Terry and Gordon Hayward for Chris Paul. Just figuring that out. I don't think the money works if you have to probably do some other intangibles. But let's talk about worst case scenario. I think the worst case scenario for this Hornets team is they have the worst record in the NBA, which may or may not be the worst. Which may not be the
That's
worst case
probably
scenario.
not the worst case scenario for them. That's probably
yeah.
the best case scenario.
I mean, maybe the worst case scenario would maybe be like the
the
middle
worst
of
case
the pack.
scenario is another LaMelo Ball injury. That's the worst case scenario, in my opinion.
And on top of that, you never really get to see what Brandon Miller and him look like together on the floor for an extended period of time.
Injuries, right? Like, yeah, right. If LaMelo Ball gets injured, if Brandon Miller gets injured, a major injury, that's the worst case scenario for the Charlotte Hornets, in my opinion. So,
DJ.
No, it's that LaMelo Ball gets hurt again, or Brandon Miller gets hurt. And it's just the wheels fall completely off. Again, we're not expecting much out of the Charlotte Hornets, and
True.
we're not expecting much to begin with. So like Izzy's like Gordon Hayward, Terry Rozier, your time is up. No, bro, your time been up. You just like no one wants you.
It's true.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, thank you very much for checking us out here at the Crossover. That's been our Southeast Division preview. Thank you very much for checking us out here at Prime Sports World. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. I think on tomorrow, we got College Football Weekly and our College Football Showdown. Sorry, and I think the College Football Basketball Show is coming back. Izzy can just shine some light on that
the College Basketball Madness. I'm gonna come out with a preview. If TJ wants to join, he's more than welcome.
I'm looking at a mock draft right now. It says the Hornets are projected to get the 4th overall pick, and that's some kid named Justin Edwards out of Kentucky.
Another diaper dandy freshman.
Yeah, another wing.
But Saturday we're gonna finish our division series. We're gonna be doing the Northwest, home of the Denver Nuggets. Sorry, so keep an eye out for that content. I'm David Huffman right there, Israel Vera, TJ Hopkins, and I hope you guys all enjoy Thursday Night Football. It's about to get kicked off here in about 20 minutes. Gentlemen, what we do hit the prime, my friends.
Bring the heat, baby.
Hey, Izzy.
Yo,
how you feel about Isaiah Collier in the Bulls uniform?
I would love it.
We'll be back here tomorrow. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Y'all have a good night. Stay safe.
Yes, sir.